Good morning, everybody. So those that know me know that I'm super passionate about empowering veterans. There's not really any motive behind this because I don't have any immediate family members that are veterans. I do have some cousins, second cousins, and things like that. However, I definitely feel like they're the backbone of America, and they truly risk all the things in life that are priceless, right? Time with their family, children's first steps. It's hard on relationships in their life. They're gone a lot. A lot of times, they have to do difficult things that affect their mental health. So they really are the true heroes in America. With that being said, those who know me also know that I used to work for the VA as a benefits advisor, and I got a lot of knowledge through, mentoring, through teaching the benefits and things like that. And I wanted to share that with other veterans since I think it'll be super duper helpful, right? Especially around disability claims. You should never be shy or reserved when going after the entitlements that you all have earned through all of those things that are truly priceless that you all have risked, right? So with this video, I'm going to help everybody understand the process of disability claims. During my job on site and all of that, a lot of times I would stay afterwards to listen to the other briefers so that I could gain insider knowledge to share with you all. So with that being said, we're going to talk about filing disability claims. But before we do, I want to let everybody know anything that I'm going to talk about today. You can go to mentorsmovingmountains.com and you can go on the veteran page, and all of this that I'm going to talk about you can find on guides there. The one entitled Disability Claims, you can download it and print it out, and it'll give you step-by-step instructions so that you can make sure that you're crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's, right? Another thing about me is I am a LMSW, so I'm now a social worker. I also work in the community as an abuse and violence specialist and at crisis response, and I'm a therapist for the school system, so super duper tied in. And the times that I worked with veterans, I traveled to all bases in Maryland, DC, Virginia, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Delaware. However, I always volunteered to go up and down the East Coast to visit all those other bases so that I could network and meet people. And I have to tell you, my network for serving you all is very, very strong. So, if you need a VSO to help you file your disability claims, I'm super connected and I can reach out to them and get you that contact so that you can make sure that you're getting great services. The things with VSOs is they are free, right? So they don't cost you anything. And if you get with a good VSO, they're going to be just as good as any of these paid lawyers that people are utilizing. It is my belief that if people reach out to their network and get good customized advice, then they can find the right VSO for them, right? Obviously, I wouldn't send a transitioning service member to one of the VSOs on my list when they're just separating, as compared to a Vietnam veteran who has been out a while and may not have his records, right? So that can look very, very different. Again, reach out and shoot me an email, Kelly, Kelli, at mentorsmovingmountains.com, and I'll be glad to, connect you with a great VSO. Again, my guides are on my website, so anything I'm going to talk about you can find there. Before we get started, I want to say you can file a disability claim at any time in your lifetime. It doesn't matter if you've been out 40 years, you can still file. However, it is highly recommended that you try to file within 90 to 180 days before separation in order to get that priority claim status, right? So for those of you who are still active, keep in mind that about a year out, you definitely want to attend TAP, Transitional Assistance Program. They have it at every base. Reach out to the TAP manager and find out when it is. But if you can attend that, within a year before getting out, maybe even a little bit more, attend the class. You're going to get a ton of really, really, really useful information. And you need to know this stuff about a year out, because ideally about 8 months out, you're going to gather your records and order your records and try to file closer to the 180 days before separation. As long as you do this, you can get all of your exams and all of that done, and get out of the military, go on terminal leave, you'll have everything wrapped up, and then you're waiting for the response from the VA. So ideally 90 to 180 days before you get out, you should file. But again, start preparing about a year out and attend TAP. If you've been out 40 years, again, you can still file as well. But make sure you get that customized VSO so that you can make sure that you're getting great service. All VSOs are accredited and can help you. However, again, knowing that specialized help that you need is very, very helpful. With that being said, we're going to jump into disability claims, right? So there are 4 types of injuries that the VA recognizes. The first one is a direct injury. And basically, it's pretty simple to say when and where it happened, and it happened while you were on active duty. So a direct injury, an example could be you're running drill and you have your pack on your back, you fall into a hole and injure your ankle, right? That is a direct injury. It happened while on active duty. You can file that claim. The next type of injury is an aggravated injury. A lot of people don't realize this. However, aggravated injuries are super important to know about, because an aggravated injury is an injury that was made worse due to your service-connected time. Example could be maybe I played high school football, I blew out my knee, had a knee surgery at 18, and then joined the Army at 21. I may even sign a waiver for that knee because I've had surgery. However, after I do 20 years in the military, carrying all that stuff on my back, of course that injury and that knee is going to hurt again, right? You can file that. That is an aggravated injury. Also, if you file tomorrow and 20 years down the line, that injury gets a lot worse, you can file an aggravated injury then too. The next type of injury is a presumptive injury. Basically, a presumptive injury is enough people that were active duty or as veterans come forward. They're all having the same symptoms, and they can correlate them symptoms from being in a specific environment or exposed to a specific toxic chemical hazard, things like that. Examples may be radiation, Camp Lejeune water, Agent Orange, burn pits, asbestos, lead paint, things like that. You can file those injuries. And then lastly, the 4th type of injury, which may not be super important for you right now. However, it is very important to remember for down the line. A secondary injury is an injury that derives from an already service-connected injury. So an example could be I had a knee surgery, or I got 20% for my knee in the Army, and I've been out for 10 years. I'm standing on my feet a lot for work. Obviously, I'm not going to put my weight on my bad knee, so I may shift it to my other leg. Well, after 10 years of shifting on that other leg, my hip may start to hurt, or my lower back, right? We all know that injuries work their way up your body. So if you have bad ankles, it's going to go to your knees and then your hips and so forward. You can file those. Those are known as secondary injuries. It is important to know that, because you may get out and have a high percentage, and after 10 years, you can file for these secondary injuries. However, keep in mind that once you file and you get your rating back, once you file, if in the future you file for a percentage upgrade or a new injury, you are giving the VA the okay to open your entire file. So always, always, always make sure you work with the VSO. They're going to look at what you got, what evidence you got, and give you the best recommendations. So next, we're going to get into the evidence. How do you get your evidence for your claim, right? Super important. Everybody should know. I'm not going to get into qualifications for disability claims. You can shoot me an email. We can go over that because it's so specific. And I think most people automatically know whether or not they qualify for disability. However, you're going to need that evidence to back up your claim, right? So keep in mind, you are active duty 24/7. That means any injury or illness that comes about while you're on active duty should be service connected. This means it's super duper duper important to gather all of your records, number one, and number two, get that injury documented, especially retirees, right? We know that you all do not make it to retirement by going to the doctor, right? There's just no way. However, you have these issues that need addressed. It is not unusual for people to see all their doctors in the, last year before they get out. It's pretty common in the military because for lots of different reasons, people don't get seen like they should have. However, super important to get any injuries that you are feeling or suffering on record while on active duty. Next, you want to gather your records, right? Don't just go with TRICARE records alone. You're going to want to go online or on base and order your entire military record, right? Everything might not be in TRICARE. Also, if you have been to community care providers or doctors in the community or emergency rooms, you're going to want to gather those records too, because or at least check your military record and make sure they're in there, because sometimes they may not be, and those are service-connected injuries. Now, I live in the DC area, right? So we do brief at sometimes at Fort Belvoir and Walter Reed. It's important to know that sometimes people that get seen at Fort Belvoir or Walter Reed for medical, those records may not be in your other military records. So if you've seen doctors at Walter Reed or Fort Belvoir, make sure that you are ordering your records and making sure that's in there. And if they're not, going to those specific facilities and making sure you gather those records. Also, like Fort Detrick and Carlisle, for example, I also brief there. They a lot of times see community doctors, right? You're going to have to go to your community doctors and gather those records. Now, if you have your military doctors request them and sign the release, they're free. However, if you don't do that and you go to the facility, you probably will have to pay. Next, what do you do if you can't find the evidence you need for your disability claim, right? That's not uncommon. There's fires, people lose it, records aren't transferred, things like that. There is something known as buddy letters / witness statements. These are a form that you can have somebody fill out as witness to your injuries or claims. Super helpful with mental health, right? Because who knows you better? Your boss, your spouse, people like that. They can write this statement and say, hey, yeah, he's waking up every night, or, he isolates so much, or yeah, he's depressed, or he's having nightmares, that kind of thing. Or maybe you were, deployed on a secret mission and you were injured and you can't find those records. You can reach out to a teammate and have them fill out that buddy letter witness statement. If you are interested in that form, it is included in a link on the disability guide on mentorsmovingmountains.com on the veterans page, or again, you can reach out to me and I'll be glad to forward that form to you. Also, if you're still active duty and you're seeing these community doctors that aren't military, there is forms on the VA site called DBQ forms. DBQ forms have injuries broke down into body parts, and so you can print out those forms, take them to your community doctor. It's going to ensure that you have all the right medical information in your military record, because again, the VA does look for very specific things, so that is super helpful. Also, on a side note, there is something called the CFR manual. You can find that online, or shoot me an email, or again, it's in that guide. CFR manual does break down body parts and injuries based on symptoms and percentages. So, I believe knowledge is power, so it might be helpful to check out that as well. Next, sleep apnea. Get a lot of questions about that. This could change in the future, but as of 6 months ago, it was not changed. If you have sleep apnea or mental health, right, both of those affect every single area of your life, your relationships, your well-being, your outlook, your attitude, all that. So if you have mental health or sleep apnea, make sure you're getting that documented on your records, because again, that can affect every area of your life and it can be a huge percentages. Also, something that I see that goes by the wayside is migraines, right? Everybody that knows me knows I'm fascinated with the brain. Everything I can learn about it, I'm so fascinated with it. However, this is something I think all veterans who have experienced a TBI should go to the NICO Center up in DC or another facility and have your brain scanned before you get out. People that have traumatic brain injuries, they, are very much known to lead to major depression in veterans, as well as Alzheimer's, dementia, and all of those injuries that show up later in life, right? It may not be affecting you now, but if you have a brain TBI and in 20 years you develop dementia, it is that connection in that brain scan that's going to get you that in-home care and things like that to care for you, right? So I always suggest, if I had a TBI, I would definitely want to get my brain scanned. Next, military sexual trauma. Very, very prevalent in the military population, unfortunately. People that know me know that I'm a victim specialist for over 15 years now. And I get veterans in the emergency all the time, and I'm meeting with them. They cannot get into mental health treatment, things like that. So they end up in the hospital in crisis. Keep in mind, vet centers are in your local community. They're part of the VA. The VA, they can see into the VA's records, but the VA cannot see into their records. You can go there active duty. They have evening and weekends hours, and they're awesome for mental health support for veterans. You can see them again on active duty or, as a veteran, and they're free for veterans and their family members. So, great place to go and get those symptoms documented so that you can present and file for that MST. Also, the VA has what's known as MST coordinators that they can connect people with so that they can get connected with an advocate and case manager who's basically going to handle everything for them so that they don't have to be re-victimized telling their story. Great resources. If you need any of them or contacts, please reach out to me. I love empowering veterans, again, because you are the people that just, you put the mission above everybody else and your individual needs. And you're so kind to people, coming into your community and things like that. And I was always welcomed by you all. And I felt like I belonged and was supported. So thank you for that. Lastly, with your evidence, make sure you keep all original records. Do not give those records away. If you give those records away and they get lost, you're SOL. So always make sure you keep those a copy of those records. A lot of the VSOs will make that copy for you. It doesn't matter when you go to meet with your VSO if you have paper copies, a disc, and a thumb drive, whatever you got, they're totally cool with that. There's no preferred method. So we talked about the important things with filing a disability claim and gathering evidence. And now we're going to talk about applying for disability compensation, right? Super important. There are 3 ways that you can apply for disability compensation. However, I know this is majorly stressful for people is filing their disability claim. Obviously, it's for life and you want to make sure you get it right. So I always say no matter which way you file, you all have 3 things to do. Number 1, get it on record. If you have injuries or illnesses or anything like that, you want to get it on record while you're active duty if you can. Number 2, gather your records. We just talked about all the places to gather your evidence and your records. Gather those records, I would say, at about 8 months out, because sometimes they can take 4 to 6 weeks to come in. They are getting better about that, but right now that's where it stands. So about 8 months out, gather your records. And then lastly, get with your VSO. Once you get with your VSO, they're going to sit down with you and do the whole entire process for you. And a good VSO is going to ask you what you want to file for, and then they're going to review your records to make sure that evidence is in there. If not, they're going to tell you what, to see whatever doctors to make sure that all of the evidence and everything is lined up and all of your ducks in a row, right? So no matter which way you file, get it documented, gather your evidence, and get with your VSO because they're going to take care of everything else. Again, I'm super connected with all of the bases. I have points of contacts all over US and beyond. So feel free to reach out to you, and I'll reach out to them and get you with a specialized VSO. Always happy to support y'all. So with 3 ways to file your disability claim. The first one is probably the best and most used method, and it is called BDD, Benefits Delivery at Discharge. So benefits delivery at discharge is going to be your priority claim status, and it's going to get your funds coming back the quickest. However, there's a very strict deadline of when you have to file for BDD, and that is 90 to 180 days before separation. That has nothing to do with terminal leave. So your actual separation date, 90 to 180 days before that, you are going to, again, be gathering your evidence, sit down with your VSO and file your claim. As long as you file within that window, your money is going to start coming in the fastest once you separate. It's up to you. If you are doing skill bridge or you have a lot of terminal leave and you're moving and you want to start up this new section of your life, just make sure that you try to file at around 180 days. If you file closer to the 180 days, the VA is going to have 90 days to get you into all of your evaluations to check you out. And this way, then after that 90 days, the rest of your terminal leave, you can utilize that for fun, time with family, starting a new job, SkillBridge, or moving to your new dream location, right? So, but again, you have from 180 to 90 days. That's BDD, Benefits Delivery Discharge. Next, we have our FDC claims, fully developed claims. Fully developed claims, basically you gather all your evidence. You can go online or utilize a VSO, file your claim, you sign, seal, deliver. You say, VA, this is my claim, give me my rating. FDC claims can be filed within that 89 to 0 days before you get out. So yes, they can be filed while you're still active duty to whenever, 30 years from now. However, we highly recommend that you file within that first year. As long as you file within 1 year of separation, your claim effective date will get backdated to the day following separation. If you wait further than a year out to file that FDC, your claim effective date is going to be the date the VA gets the claim. So super important. File within that first year, or you're losing that year's worth of compensation. Now, if you'll file an FDC claim for certain injuries and the VA doesn't find the evidence, they may not give you a rating for that, and they will switch that to a standard claim so that it'll give you time to gather your evidence. With that being said, one more thing. With FDC claims, you can file within that 89 to 0 days before getting out. So you can still file while you're on active duty. But the difference is with BDD, Benefits Delivery Discharge, the VA is working on your claim and working on your ratings while you're still active duty. With FDC, even though you can file within that 89 to 0 days, the VA is not even going to open up your file till you've already separated. So again, that BDD does get you that priority status. Lastly, your standard claims. Standard claims are basically veterans have injuries. They don't have the evidence to back it up, but they know it's service connected and they want to file. A lot of times you'll find this with our older veterans, the Vietnam veterans and things like that who don't have their records. They'll go ahead and file a claim. This allows the claim to be open, and either you as the veteran or the VA will search for this evidence to try to back the claim. This can work out quickly sometimes, and other times not so much so, right? Because, for example, maybe you're a Vietnam veteran, you don't have any records or any of that, but they can look at your records and say, hey, he was stationed here, he might have been subject to this, which could lead to these symptoms, bam, service connected, right? So, keep that in mind. Standard claims can take a long time because, again, you or the VA have to find that evidence. Now, on a side note, there is something called an intent to file letter or an intent to file form. This is a 1-page form that's going to secure you the earliest possible claim effective date. An intent to file form is only utilized if you are filing your claim further than the year out. If you're filing your claim further than the year out, you can submit an intent to file form, and that's going to secure you the earliest possible claim effective date. I'm going to explain this in an example because I think that it's the best way to explain it, right? Let's say, I'm up here and I'm teaching a class, I'm standing on my feet, and I realize my hip's hurting due to shifting my weight on my leg, from my other leg that has a bad knee. I decide, man, I really should file that secondary injury. It's been 10 years and I'm really feeling this in my hip now. I could go home, make phone calls, get appointments, see my doctors, gather the records, and file 10 months from now. That would be my claim effective date. Or I could go home today, file a 1-page intent to file form, then make my calls, go to my doctors, see my appointments, and gather my records and submit my claim. Then when my claim is approved, the claim effective date will get backdated to the date of the intent to file form. So basically, this form can really help you, again, secure you that earliest possible claim effective date. However, it's only useful if you're filing more than a year out. So now let's get to a little bit of the extras, right? Keep in mind that when you file your claim, it's going to come back, and it's going to could be if you're, for example, if you're a retiree, you may have lots of injuries. Take a look at what the VA sends you, and take note of what injuries are temporary and which ones are permanent, because temporary disabilities, a lot of mental health, pain, things like that, they could get better or they can get worse. So they may give you a temp percentage. However, if they are perm, that you should be good there, right? So just take note, because things like pain and mental health, you may slack off with therapy or treatment because maybe you have pain and you've seen all your doctors, and the only thing they can do now is pain meds or surgery, and you don't want to do either. If that's you, make sure you at least go to the doctor and make sure that they know that you're still in this pain. Same with mental health. Maybe you've been to therapy every day for 5 years and you're therapied out, but still go the minimum to show if you're still having these mental health symptoms, right? Super important. And then, so next again to refiling. Again, I mentioned this earlier. If you open up your claim because you want to get a percentage upgrade or file for that secondary claim, keep in mind that you're giving the VA the okay to open your entire file. So always consult with that VSO. Now, a couple other side notes. This is only pertinent if you are a retiree, a military retiree. There is something called CRSC, Combat Related Special Compensation. These are DoD benefits. Both of these I'm going to talk about. CRSC is for combat related injuries or disabilities. Sometimes this can give you more than what VA disability would give you. However, you have to apply for it. So if you have, combat injuries, make sure that you set up an appointment with DFAS, go down there, let them run the equation and the figures and figure out what your best route is. Next, we have CRDP. This is another DoD benefit, and this is for retirees only. Concurrent retirement and disability pay. Basically, I'll do best explaining this in an example. 50% is the magic number. If you receive a 50% disability rating or more from the VA, you will get both military retiree pay and VA disability pay. For example, maybe you get $3,000 a month for retirement pay. You'll get that minus taxes, if you're state taxes. And then you'll get your full disability pay for whatever that is, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, or 100, because VA does round up or down. Now, if you have a VA disability rating of 40% or less, you will not get both. What this would look like is if you are at 40%, let's say you're getting $3,000 in retirement pay, and you're at 40%, so maybe you're going to get $800 for the VA. Don't know the figures, this is just an example. How CRDP would work for people at 40% or under would be, you would get your VA pay first because it's untaxed. So you would get that $800 in VA pay, but that $800 would be taken off your DoD retirement pay. So now you would only get paid that $2,200. And then, but you do get more money because now only $2,200 is taxed rather than the full $3,000, right? Both of these benefits, again, are DoD benefits. Combat related special compensation, you do have to apply for, and you can't get both CRSC and CRDP. If you qualify for both, again, go see DFAS, figure out what your best route is. Now let's break down the percentages, right? Let's say, for those of you who are not familiar with VA math, ratings are broken down into 10% increments that round up or down. For example, if you're at 52, you're going to round down to a 50. If you're at a 66, you're going to round up to a 70. For those of you who are not familiar with VA math, all of your disabilities do not get added together to give you your disability percentage. I'm going to try to break this down in an example the best that I can. Let's say you have 50% for PTSD. So now the VA will look at it that you are 50% disabled and 50% in good health. Let's say the VA gives you a 20% now for your knees. The VA is going to take 20% of your 50% good health. After that, if you have a third injury, the VA is going to take, so let's say you have another 20%, they're going to take 20% of your 30% left in good health, and then that's going to give your VA disability compensation. I didn't have my notes and I may have messed that up a little bit. However, there is something known as the VA math calculator that can be really helpful. You can look it up online and you can put in your injuries and your percentages and they can give you an estimated amount. Now let's talk about VA disability compensation and how it can help you. Again, on my Mentors Moving Mountains site, there is, guides that do tell you all the perks based on percentages for once you get your claim rating. However, keep in mind that there are clothing allowances, right? There's grants. You can get $1,000 a year if you have, your clothes need altered for a service-connected injury, or maybe you have ointments and creams that, stain your clothes, things like this. There's the clothing allowance. There's car grants. If you have injuries, you need to adapt your car or house to meet your needs. There are education programs for people with disabilities. There's DEA, Dependents Education Assistance, that your loved ones can get once you reach 100% permanent total disability rating. There's Veteran Readiness and Employment, the former vocational rehab for veterans with service-connected injuries. Great program, especially if you have transferred your benefits to your spouse or child, because now they can keep their GI Bill. If you want to get retrained in something new, you can apply for VRNE. If you have 20% or more rating that's affecting your ability to do your current job. VRNE can be used for a whole degree. It can be used for technical training. It can be used for starting your own business and entrepreneurship. It can be there for people who are not able to work, IU disability at 100%, things like that. Also with VRNE, a little side note and a good piece of information to know, if you have any unused GI Bill left in your account in your child's spouse's name, you will get monthly housing the entire length of the program that you're in VRNE. For example, at the Naval Academy, had a guy, he was getting out with a service-connected injury. He had arthritis in his hands. It was painful for him to do cybersecurity and things like that now, so he applied for VRNE to get trained in something new. He went back and got an entire 4-year degree in business management through VRNE. He had his GI Bill, which is now forever, so he didn't even touch that, but he got the monthly housing the entire time he was in the VRNE, and then he still had his forever GI Bill to use. Keep in mind, if you play your cards right by keeping some of your GI Bill, applying for VRNE, doing a 4-year degree, you can get 36 months of monthly housing, then use your 4-year degree GI Bill. It doesn't have to be for, GI Bill can be used for anything. For example, I had a Navy chief, 30 years, getting out of the Navy, and he wanted to start his own snorkeling and charter fishing company in Thailand, right? So we looked up on the GI Bill comparison tool. We found an internship that would train him in his scuba diving certifications. It was 6 months long. Him and his wife were not going to use the GI Bill because they were both doctors and retiring. They both had their GI Bills. They both went down to Key West. They did the 6-month internship. They got their monthly housing and stipends while through the program. And then once they got out, they were able to move to Thailand and start their own charter fishing and scuba diving company, right? So GI Bill can be used lots of ways. If you use VRNE for 36 months and then you add on another 36 months utilizing your GI Bill, whether it's for, professional purposes, or maybe you like to cook, cut hair, mechanics, botany, you name it. You'd utilize that GI Bill, go more than half time, and you can get another 36 months of monthly housing. This is almost 7 years worth of a 30-year mortgage paid through the VA. Huge, right? So know this stuff and know to play your cards right. Next, keep in mind that there are 3 different 100% ratings. There's 100% just regular. There's 100% PNT, which means it's not going to change. That 100% PNT, you can do away with any FAFSA loans you have. It comes with a lot of different benefits. 100% comes with free dental through the VA, things like this. And then lastly, you have your 100% IU, individual unemployability. These veterans do get the most money, however, they cannot hold jobs. You can be 100% PNT, permanently and totally disabled, and still go out there and make $300,000 a year if you can find that job. Lastly, again, lots of benefits in the community and through the VA based on what disability percentage that you have. go to my site and check out the document on the veterans page. It'll break it down by percentage so that you know what you are eligible for. So with that being said, I know this was a super long video, but again, you know, I'm really grateful for everything that you all have done for our country. And, you know, I'm not paid to do this anymore, but I do feel like knowledge is power, and it's super important that you all know this information. And just know, I really, really, really respect and admire all of you all and the things that you have risked and sacrificed for our country. And forget the government. You all are the government. Not the high ups up on, you know, sitting in DC and all that. You all are the backbone of America. And we're really grateful for everything that you have done for our country. Keep doing good in the world, you know. I was a teacher for a little while, and I can tell you, I worked at Meade Middle. You could tell which students were military and which ones weren't. Military people are very respectful and welcoming, and you raise your kids with amazing values. So make sure you're keeping yourself healthy so that you can keep, you know, role modeling those amazing traits that I wish everybody in America could have. And make sure, you know, you reach out if you have any questions. You know, again, my support network is, you know, throughout the whole U.S. Glad to provide any insight, guidance, or connection with any of my networks. So feel free to reach out and stay blessed, everybody.